On the right side of the Mini, in the right side door engine compartment, we have the air filter, and just below the air filter on the right hand side is the air filter indicator restriction gauge. That should be checked. Also on this side, for some reason, if you needed to, the turbo is located on this side of the engine along with the starter. In the event that some of those items might need to be checked or repaired, they're on this side of the engine. You also have access to the hydraulic driven fan from this side if that would need be, along with the other side. And the valve bank that's on the right side of the engine is just inside the panel here if you would need to operate or look at that for anything. The drive system on the Mini is equipped with hydraulic wheel motors. And in those wheel motors, there is a device that will allow you to release the wheel motor and the park brake in the event the machine would need to be towed, the engine doesn't start, or there's another part on the machine that were to fail. There's a plug in the middle of here that would be taken out and a device inside that needs to be adjusted. And if that were a need, just refer to the operator's manual and it'll give you a greater detail on how that needs to be done. On the right hand side of the Mini, you will see at the steering articulation point, there is this red lock bar that once you put the machine on a trailer, that should be used and put into place to lock the steering from moving and then tie the machine down on the trailer. Farther back on the right hand side of the machine, there is the cover for the diesel fuel fill. As you notice here, there's a place to put your padlock on there, and that should be removed once you start for the day if access were needed to it. Just by lifting the cover, you can see the green cover here indicating that this is the fill for the diesel fuel, and also the return line for the fuel system, returning the excess fuel from the engine back to the tank.
Here we are at the rear of the Mini-Jarraff, and we have our maintenance-free boom driven by a belt. So that's actually what extends and retracts the boom. It's all belt driven with a V-groove belt. Very simple tensioning system. Here on the side, all we have to do is measure in between the tabs on the tensioning spring. That's tightened to 3 inches, and that's simply a 2-inch wrench. There's 2 nuts on back, and all you have to do is just tighten them until you have 3 inches in between the 2 tabs. That's it. No greasing, no double jam nuts, just 1 wrench, 1 spring to tension there. You can also see on the back side here we have our hose reel hoses that run up from the center of the machine around the rear. We just want to do a daily inspection of those hoses because those are feeding our pressure and our return lines all the way out to the end of the saw head. So we want to be sure that those are free of cracks or defects. Being that it's on the very rear of the machine, it's susceptible to damage from limbs, and if you aren't being careful, you could potentially, hit that on some debris or something. So you just want to be sure you're checking those hose reel hoses as much as possible daily at the bare minimum. Also on the rear of the machine, we have 4 grease zerks on the back, which are located just underneath the drive motor. We have 2 grease zerks going into a pin, and then we have 2 remote connections that will actually go and grease some linkage pieces further down the boom. But as far as the end of this, we're just looking to keep that, again, blowing out daily with dust. You want to blow out this cover, clean all debris at least daily to keep everything running correctly back here. Other than that, you're ready to trim. So out at the end of the boom, we have the rotating saw head. It's got a 24-inch blade coupled to this rotating saw head assembly. Daily, you're inspecting your saw blade. You're inspecting it for teeth loss. You're inspecting for cracks or warps. Per our guidelines, if you have 10% of the teeth missing or loose, you want to go ahead and replace that blade. They're about a 74 count too, so that'd be about 8 teeth affected. You want to go ahead and replace that blade. Right at the end, inside of this compartment here, is the saw head greasing point, and what that does is that lubricates your saw arbor bearing. We like to think of the saw head as the business end of our machine. You have this elaborate machine. It's all to get this saw head up into the tree, so you want to take as much care of this as possible. Other than that, no maintenance points out on this end other than the grease zert that's for the saw arbor bearings and a daily check of your saw blade. I will note that behind that saw blade is our saw guard. You want to always have that in place. That's protecting you grounds crew, anybody working around you, and people who aren't even on the job site, just in case there is potential debris coming off of this saw blade. You want to be sure that this saw guard is intact and straight, no cracks, so that it protects you and everybody around you from debris. In the event that your Mini-Jarraff does get stuck out on the job site, we incorporate on both the front and rear of the machine, we have tow straps that are hooked directly to the frame of the machine. When these machines are stuck, it's best to pull off of the frame, not the legs, when you're freeing the machine from wherever you have it stuck. So these straps will run underneath the machine and to a solid point, so you're able to put a winch or a tow chain or strap right to these when it is stuck. So once again, just to outline that, do not pull on the legs or where you're tying the machine down in the event that you are stuck, because you will cause damage to components on this machine.